I'm Jody Trafton. Just to give you a little background on me so you know who you're talking to. I was trained as a neurobiologist, so all of my training is in neuroscience. But since then, I have been working as a health services researcher and now a clinical operations program evaluator with a focus on chronic pain and addiction. So I have probably a fairly unique perspective in that I understand things based on how brains work, and I'm an outside observer who's had lots and lots of opportunity to observe very large numbers of patients, talk to lots of patients, talk to lots of providers, study how healthcare systems work and how processes work, look at what people do clinical practice-wise. And my main job is in the Veterans Health Administration, where I work for the national office. So I get to watch behavior on large scales, like 8 million people a year with 80,000 providers. So we get to see sort of big picture what's happening and understand sort of how it works and where it's coming from. So my goal today is to give you, not to necessarily run through the guidelines or give you clinical details about this is exactly how to dose with this formulation of opiate or that formulation of opiate. But my hope is that what you'll take from this is a new framework to think about where chronic pain behaviors come from, how opiates work, why some of the behavior that comes out around them is so strange, and hopefully reduce some of the helplessness that I think gets felt from all levels. I work in a lot of different areas in terms of quality improvement. There's no area besides chronic pain management and opiate therapy where I think there's as much helplessness at all levels. Patients are upset, doctors are upset, everyone's scared of each other. It's a giant mess. So I'm hoping to try to explain where that is so everybody knows where everyone's coming from, hopefully give you a framework to think about things so that you don't have to feel so threatened, and then hopefully give you a lot of different pointers about what's worked for people who do understand and can make this work effectively in clinical practice. Okay, so CDC recently came out with a brand new clinical practice guideline. It focused on primary care treatment. Their reasoning for focusing on primary care providers is that 50% of opiates are prescribed in primary care. So this really has become chronic pain is getting managed in primary care because most places, that's the only place it can get managed. And pretty much anything that we don't have specialty treatment for falls on primary care. 2 million Americans are estimated to have opiate abuse or dependence problems at this point, based solely on prescription opiates. That doesn't count illicit use of heroin and other drugs. It's a lot of people, and a lot of people don't really know what to do when they encounter patients with prescription opiate problems. That being said, chronic pain is incredibly prevalent. At least 11% of patients in the population have daily pain that they don't know how to manage. The prescription rates are very, very high, and they keep increasing. And America really doesn't do chronic pain treatment like everyone else. We prescribe the vast bulk, about 80% of all of the world's opiate prescribing happens in the United States, and we do not have 80% of the chronic pain patients. So we do prescribe, we treat chronic pain different than everyone else in the world. Primary care providers will tell you they don't know what they're to do. They're trying their best. They don't have solutions, and they don't know how to implement. So the big part, the part that everybody's worried about right now is this, right? So the number of deaths related to prescription opiates has increased dramatically year over year and is now incredibly high. So 165,000 people die from overdoses on prescription opiates every year. That's more than people who die in car accidents in most states now. So it's very, very, very common cause of death, of accidental death. And so finding ways of trying to reduce this number while not abandoning people in chronic pain, continuing to help, because that's just as much of a problem. These medications are not prescribed for no reason. They're prescribed because people are healthcare seeking and they really do have chronic pain problems. We don't want to abandon them, but this is not an acceptable outcome for that many patients. So this just shows from 2001 to 2014 the increase in number of overdose deaths from opiate painkillers. And I will say this is not related to any change in the type of drugs prescribed or the way that drugs are prescribed. This is simply related to an increase. It maps almost perfectly onto the increase in prescribing. So exact same rate of prescribed opiates to opiate overdose, but there's a lot more getting prescribed these days. And so that's part of a lot of recent guidelines have focused on, let's slow down the prescribing, let's get our prescribing rates down, because it's the prescriptions that are driving the overdoses. No big change in what was going on. This just emphasizes that opiates really are disproportionately the cause of pharmaceutical-related overdose deaths. So you can see the vast majority, this is all pharmaceutical deaths, are related to opiates. Benzodiazepines are the second highest, and we'll talk a little bit about benzodiazepines as well. They're often co-prescribed with opiates, and a lot of these benzodiazepine-related deaths are likely combined with opiates as well. So in many studies, rates of co-prescription of benzodiazepines with opiates, it's about 30% rate. So if a patient has an opiate prescription, there's about a 30% chance they have a benzodiazepine prescription as well. And these two drugs combine to increase overdose risk substantially. Antidepressants also, some of them are highly sedating and can also contribute as well in combination to opiates to respiratory depression-induced death. So while you can have antidepressant overdoses alone, some of these deaths, again, are also likely combination overdoses. So substantial component of the overdose problem. So one of the interesting parts about opiate analgesic prescribing is practice patterns are very, very regional. What gets done in one area of the country is very different from another. So there's local cultural differences in how people manage chronic pain. So you can see the yellow states are ones where per capita opiate prescribing is relatively low, orange a little bit higher, and these purple a little bit higher, and the dark purple are areas of the country where opiates get prescribed much, much more frequently than other places. And you can see this is really, it's up to a threefold difference in opiate prescribing rates. So we've seen, I work in VA, so we have higher percentage of chronic pain patients than most healthcare systems because we treat people who had war injuries. But our hospitals range from, say, 8% of patients getting opiates, and back at the peak of prescribing, we found some where 40% of patients who came in the door were getting an opiate prescription. So huge differences in how these are getting prescribed. And overdose patterns track the prescribing patterns as well. So get lots of questions. What has actually caused this opiate epidemic? And depending on who you talk to, everyone likes to blame somebody else, right? So you go, doctors will tell you, oh my God, these patients, they're just coming in, they're drug seeking, I don't trust them, they lie to me, I don't know what's going on. It's all the patients, it's these addicts coming to me trying to get me to give them pills. You get the doctors, you get the DEA running around saying, no, it's doctors out there, they're starting pill mills, they're just out there shilling drugs so that they can get money. It's a fast way for doctors to get money, as if that's, the best practice, model there is, or something like that. I've had lawyers contact me blaming it on the pharmaceutical companies. Clearly the pharmaceutical companies, they're just running out there trying to make a profit at the expense of patients. It's just like the tobacco epidemic, it's just these people out there trying to make money. And And when you actually look at it, this is not the problem, right? You can find rare instances of bad behavior, but this is not what's causing 165,000 deaths a year. And even if we figured out how to stop people from doing bad things at all times, it would have very, very little impact on this epidemic. So what is actually causing this, I think is the first place I think we need to focus. You talk to patients. I thought these were really interesting. It's a brand new study, a qualitative study talking to patients about both their experience with opiates. How did they get started? Are they scared of them now that they've heard all about the opioid epidemic, that they could potentially die of an overdose? What do they think about that? And what do they think about their doctors suggesting maybe you should cut back? Maybe we overdid it here and we need to take you off. Because I think that's something both patients are terrified of and doctors are terrified of. Nobody wants to tell their patient that we're taking him off. So here's just a couple quotes. So one woman said, I like to research everything, but the pain was just so severe, I didn't care about anything else. I don't think that people actually consider side effects or whatnot when it comes to something like that. They just want the pain to go away, right? Really, very, very true. People coming in for pain management, all they want to hear is how they're going to get relief. How are they going to feel better? Same second quote from a different person. I don't think people in chronic pain think about the long term. We're basically, how do we get through today? I just got to get through today, said another woman, right? So it's this shift towards, I don't care what I'm going to be like 3 months from now. Right now, I am desperate. Same here, I needed help desperately by the time the hydrocodone was prescribed. I tried everything else. I tried ibuprofen, Aleve, everything over the counter, did nothing at all. So I had to go get help. I needed stronger help, more help from my powerful doctors, right? And then you got people as well who you talk to them and they say, actually this didn't work so well for me. The pills turned out horribly. I wasn't caring for myself. I wasn't bathing, wasn't sleeping. Everything in my life was a mess. And my husband, he was really worried about me and he said that this is bad, really bad. You're not doing well, right? So people sometimes will recognize that these are going in wrong directions, but that doesn't mean they're not going to come back and ask for more because they don't know how to handle things. Their pain is beyond what they can cope with, and they don't know what else to do. But here's other example once of a patient who was taken off their medication. And they said, it's really not much worse without the medication as it is with it. After you've taken it for a while, it doesn't do any good, and that's what I found. But I can't convince anyone either of it. They think I'm nuts, but I'm just fine, right? With pain's just the same when the meds are gone as when I had them in the first place. So this sort of patient perspective, interesting place. So one of the first things I usually you hear a lot is questions about, how do I know if my patient's pain is real, right? Do patients coming in, they're complaining, how do I know if they're trying to trick me or if their pain is real? And I think the point I would make is pain, it's almost always real. The rate, so infrequent that a patient comes in faking pain that I probably wouldn't even worry about it. But that being said, pain is not what most people think it is. So pain is an experience, and it's a cortical experience. It's related to your brain's summation and interpretation of input from a whole variety of brain regions, right? So this is not, it may feel like it's in one given place, but it's not a sensation that's actually associated with where you refer it to, right? It's subjective, and it doesn't always have anything to do with tissue damage after it becomes chronic. So while tissue damage may be the initial cause, the initial trigger that developed the chronic pain, after that tissue damage after you've experienced that over time, your whole brain's going to start learning. It's going to start adapting, and it's going to start changing the way that you interact with the world. And that's going to drive learning in sensory circuits, emotional circuits, and reward circuits. And this is what we're going to talk about. And eventually, maybe the tissue damage goes away and the tissue damage is gone. But if your sensory circuits that that talk to that part of the back where you had your back injury have been sensitized well beyond where all your other pain circuits are, right? You're going to start feeling things in your back when you're feeling threatened, when you're feeling upset, when things aren't quite right in your life, when you're just kind of sick and miserable. All of that distress is going to be felt wherever you've learned to feel pain the best, right? And that will often be the site where you were injured before.